So thanks for being with us. So as you guys probably already know, we're recording this, and if you need a copy, you can follow up with me later. You're probably making your own recordings. And then for optimum viewing, you should click the speaker view button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, which again, you probably already know. And then if you have a question, just put your name in the chat box and we'll call on you as we go ahead. Okay, so now it's my pleasure to introduce our tournament director, Claire Peterson, who's going to take us through the agenda. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Barry. Good to know that you are aware of what year it is. And
I am trying to be, although it's been a little weird the last 15 months. So
it's very gratifying. 28 days. I had to check the website this morning, 28 days before we start. We're so excited to do that. This is really the first virtual media day we've had ever, or at least since I've been involved for 20 years or so. So we thank everyone for joining us in this manner. If we were live, we'd be at TPC Deere Run and certainly be recognizing Todd Hyduke and his staff, the general manager, Alex Studeman, the superintendent. Certainly we recognize John Deere, title sponsor since 1998. Third longest title sponsorship on the PGA Tour at this point. And we also always really are proud. This is really probably the first opportunity that we're going to have over the next month to recognize all the people that help make this happen, and that's our volunteer force. And every year there is a board member who has been basically elected to be the volunteer chair. Lee Garlock never anticipated when he joined the board some 9 years ago that he would have a 2-year run, 2020 and 2021, but he's been the right guy for sure to be leading us through the crazy circumstances that we've all lived through over the last 2 cycles. So it's my pleasure to introduce our 2020/2021 volunteer chair, Lee Garlock.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, I did not anticipate 2 years when we got started, but it's been an interesting and fun ride. But again, good morning to everybody. And on behalf of our nearly 2,000 volunteers, as Claire mentioned, the rest of the board of directors, our tournament staff, thanks for joining us today on this call as we kick off the 50th John Deere Classic. Claire, thank John Deere. Obviously, we need to thank our CEO, Mr. John May, and as Claire mentioned, 23 years Deere has supported the John Deere Classic, and he also mentioned the 3rd longest title sponsor on the PGA Tour. Pretty impressive. Quad Cities is truly blessed and thankful to have such a great title sponsor for our tournament. And I think you can see Dylan is with us today. Dylan, we very much appreciate you joining us today and truly honored to have you as our past chairman. I know Claire's going to spend a few moments introducing you in a bit, but I would like to share one moment. I had the opportunity 2 years ago now for the first time to meet Dylan. It was right after he clinched his win at our tournament. I had the honor of escorting him from the scoring trailer down to the green where we'd present the trophy and he would receive a really nice check. Of course, I had a number of questions I wanted to ask him on the short walk down. And he turned around and changed the conversation on me. He asked all about me. He thanked me for volunteering, wanted to know what I did for my day job. And the whole conversation, he was asking me questions. And, the moment was all about Dylan. And it just gave me a little hint of his character. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you this guy's really a class act. And Dylan, we're very, very proud to have you as our chairman and looking forward to you defending your title as our tournament chairman or tournament champion this year for our special year for the John Deere Classic. As I mentioned, the 50th anniversary of the John Deere Classic, we have a lot to celebrate. Every year we do celebrate our mission, in addition to promoting volunteerism. We also have a mission to provide an annual financial contribution to charity. Obviously, last year we had to cancel our tournament due to the pandemic, but we didn't cancel our mission to provide an annual financial contribution to charity. And even without having the tournament, we generated $12.2 million for charities. And it's really just a testament of the generosity and support of our community in the John Deere Classic, support of our Birdies for Charity program, and really support of our organizations and need in the community this past year. Obviously, we're proud of the 12.2 million, but we're also very, very proud we were able to provide a 5% match to those funds through the success of our Birdies for Charity bonus fund. And obviously, that takes a lot of work for this to happen. And Claire thanked a few people. I'd like to add a couple other people we thank before I turn it over to Claire. Obviously, I mentioned our nearly 2,000 volunteers. These are our unsung heroes for our tournament. They're the heart and soul of what we do. And I got to be honest, I consider myself blessed to have met and worked with many of them, and honored to represent them on the call today. We need to thank our board of directors and our committee chairs. These folks work year round and give generously of their time and their talent and financial resources to our tournament. Of course, I also need to thank our dedicated staff. This group, who is led, in my opinion, by one of the best PGA tournament directors in the PGA, Claire Peterson. He and his team have had a tremendous amount of work these past 2 years with the rules, guidelines, and restrictions changing weekly, if not daily. They've done an amazing job thus far, and I have no doubt they'll pull together another outstanding, albeit slightly different, tournament again this year. I'd like to thank, obviously, the PGA Tours. Last time I checked, or PGA Tours, the tour players, last time I checked, they're kind of a pretty critical component to a successful tournament. The talent on the tour right now is amazing. And I think it's important we thank Dylan and the rest of the players for navigating through all that they have with COVID-19 the past 2 years to bring world-class golf to people around the world. Claire already thanked the group at TPC at Deere Run, led by Todd Hyduke and Alex Studeman. They've always put together a first-class product for our players and fans. This year in particular, I'd like to take a moment to thank the community businesses, both large and small. Thank them for continuing to participate in the John Deere Classic and supporting us even with the modified build this year and modified opportunities for hospitality. And of course, I need to be sure to thank the John Deere Foundation. Without their commitment to the tournament, we would not be able to deliver the success that we do through the Birdies for Charity program. So special thanks to them. And last, I'm going to go a little bit off course here, but I'd like to thank a talented man who rarely gets mentioned. He's usually behind the scenes orchestrating events like today's event. He always seems to be one step ahead of us, never expects acknowledgement or of his efforts or success. But he is all things media for the John Deere Classic. Is Mr. Barry Cronin. Barry on your screen today. Barry, thank you for all you do for John Deere.
Well, thank you, Lee. Thank you.
So I mentioned the success of the Birdies for Charity program. Last year we generated 12.2 million. That brings our total to nearly $133 million we've raised since the inception of the program. That obviously puts us in the top tier of tournaments and charitable giving. And it also puts us number one on the tour in per capita giving. And we're obviously very, very proud of it, of that. But it's also nice periodically to be recognized by others. And the PGA has done just that. And each of the last 5 years, they've recognized us and awarded us the most engaged community on the PGA Tour. And then the last 2 years, another award we received we're very, very proud of is the best title sponsor integration. And that's the result of tremendously talented and creative folks at John Deere and so local vendor creative, Edwards Creative, and tournament staff. So finally, before I turn it back to Claire, I would like to thank all of you in the media for participating on the call today. Your version and telling the stories really makes everything come to life each year. So we certainly appreciate that. And whether you're covering our volunteers, our players, or charity, we just appreciate your involvement and support. So again, I hope to see you all in person next month. And we're just truly excited at the opportunity to host another tournament this year as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the John Deere Classic to provide it for golf fans worldwide. So Claire, I'll turn it back to you.
Lee, awesome. You can see, everyone, we've got the right guy leading us that frame things so wonderfully. We have, I guess, a couple of people have asked for permission to record. I don't know if we respond to that, but yeah, feel free to record. And so I know that you all tuned in to listen to Dylan, so we better get to that. I don't know if Dylan signed up when he won in 2019 to be our champion that I keep sending texts to and asking favors of and congratulating for 2 years almost. But we couldn't have had a better gentleman represent us, in my opinion. And like I say, I've been through this since '02. So there are some champions that represent us perfectly, and Dylan is one of those. You probably all know the background. 2012 graduate of the University of Texas, made the winning putt in the winning match for the NCAA championship there. I did not know until I checked that he won the Byron Nelson Award as the top academic golfer in the nation with a 3.4 grade point average. So that's pretty cool. 5 professional wins, has worked his way up through the golf rankings, from Challenge Tour wins to Asian Tour wins to European Tour wins to a PGA Tour win. This year, really fun to watch him in the World Match Play, make it to the round of 16. That is a World Golf Championship with an unbelievable field. And most recently, if you followed the longest day in golf, yesterday he shot 71-65 in Columbus, Ohio to, I'm going to say he's made it to the US Open. I don't know if the final putt has dropped yet, but he sits at 8 under par with the strongest qualifying field. If you looked at who was in that field, I think there might have been 120 players for 16 spots. It was spectacular play. And at this point, again, if we were in the room, I'd turn it over to Dylan for him to reflect on 2019 and how that all felt. But I'd love to hear a little bit about yesterday just to kick things off. And I don't know what hotel chain you're sitting in there with the bottle. But thanks so much for joining us, Dylan, and we'll turn it over to you.
No, thanks for having me, Claire and Lee and Barry. Yesterday was a long day. You're right. I've played in 2 of those before. This was my first time in Columbus, and I've heard it's basically like a tour event on its own. If they handed out world ranking points, it would be a pretty strong event. So I was proud of the way I played yesterday. I had a slow start on the Lakes course and then went over to Brookside and shot 65 with 2 eagles. It was a pretty magical day, to be honest. I had some crazy shots. I just knuckled down on that second 18 and managed to finish as the last group. As the sun was setting, I was the last group to come in. So it was a nice way to end my week here in Columbus and kind of sets me up for the next run up towards the John Deere Classic. Obviously playing in the US Open is huge, playing in another major is big, and it's a nice way to start a 3 or 4 tournament stretch heading into the John Deere Classic.
Dylan, just in general, can you just give us a little bit of an idea of what it meant when you won the John Deere Classic? How did your life change in real ways after that happened?
I mean, not to sound cliched or anything, but it basically just gave me a sense of belonging, a sense of, hey, I've made it to the PGA Tour and now I'm a winner. That sort of solidifies the fact that I'm on tour and I can be here long term. I think before you get that first win, you're still kind of worried about that 125 number. You're always thinking about, do I have a job next year? Can I play well enough to keep my card? And that obviously gives a little 2-year exemption, and you don't have to worry about that fact. But it's more so the mental side that calms you down, and it just says, hey, you're good enough to win. You've done it. You've gone through the stress and the pressure of coming down the stretch. So for me, that was the major thing. Yeah, and I don't know, it's beyond the confidence. It's just a cool thing to tick off. I mean, winning on the PGA Tour, I don't know how many winners there's been, probably 1,000, less than 1,000 players that have done that. It's just a really cool group to be a part of. And as you get more wins, more stature, you start to realize that was basically the thing that started that domino effect, or started that snowball effect. And you obviously got to get over the hill once before you can do it twice and 3 times and do other things in the future. So I'm proud to have made that step, and especially at a tournament like John Deere Classic. I'd grown up watching it, and I knew a bit about it. I didn't really know that much about it until I showed up there, but I just remember watching it on TV as a kid growing up and going, oh, this is a random tournament in a small part of America, and all these other ones are in these big markets and big cities. And it always was sort of this like exotic thing to me when I thought of it. And then I heard on tour from the guys that they had so much fun, and they got to use all these different pieces of machinery before the tournament. And I was like, this is really going to be an interesting scenario. And then I obviously had a friend of mine knew a family in town, so I got to stay with them. So luckily that was a sort of connection to slowly mold me into the community, and they could explain exactly how the tournament works and what's going on in that section of the country, industry wise and work wise, and what people are up to.
Are you looking to do something similar this year? Are you staying with the same family and kind of?
Yeah, I'll be staying with the Solis family. Jim actually texted me 2 weeks ago, I think. He just said your room's ready for you if you want it. And so I'll definitely be staying with them. They've got a simulator, and I didn't get to play the simulator last year. So hopefully you guys don't have too many media commitments for me, so I can go back to the house and maybe play a few holes with them.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do the big dig on Tuesday night. So
no,
I know.
Yeah, I guess COVID policies probably preclude that. So we'll have to say that's all right. I'll try and plan on getting my family over for 2022. My 2 nephews will be keen to come over and see that. So we'll plan on that.
We'll be back up and running. I can't help but smile when I see that bobblehead there. I think it's one of the better ones we've ever done. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of fun you've had with that? If I remember right, you've had a few things that you've done with it that are kind of fun.
Yeah, so I initially posted it when you guys showed it to me. I had the picture and I posted that, and I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing. It looked pretty realistic. And then when they came in, I was shocked at the lifelike. I mean, they've even got a little watch thing here on my hand and a golf club, and it's all spot on. I don't think they missed any details of that. Even I checked the back pocket now that I've been staring at it. There's a yardage book in the back pocket, which I obviously had on when I won. So great detail on this thing. And I've recently decided to do a little, basically a lead up to the tournament. I'm going to be giving away some bobbleheads. So my birthday was last week Saturday, and I ran a little contest on my social media. I still have to pick the winner, so I've been busy with US Open stuff. So I'm going to go through my social media there and pick a winner and send it out to them along with some of my other sponsors' gifts. But I'll be doing that every week now leading up to the tournament. So hopefully you guys can latch on to that, and we can try and spread the word and get people engaged and excited for what's going to happen in 28 days.
That's great. Speaking of contests, what you don't know yet is that our champion always plays in the Wednesday Pro-Am with noon tee time with the CEO of Deere. John May is the new CEO of Deere, and he's agreed to let an employee play in that spot.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to be caddying for that employee. And they've had this contest to why should you be the one to play with Dylan Frittelli at noon.
Okay.
And the responses have been fantastic. And they do have a winner, but they had so many great responses that they're going to have 4 other finalists playing the Monday Pro-Am in a separate group. So that'll be interesting.
Awesome.
That'll be interesting for you to experience. It should be kind of fun.
That's cool. I appreciate that. And for someone, such a high-ranking official at the company, to be that down to earth and willing to do that is pretty cool. I don't think that happens in most scenarios on the PGA Tour. I think those CEOs and presidents are the ones that are too excited to play golf and don't really find that humility to maybe share it with others. So
No,
that's
it's
pretty
it's
cool
a-
of John to do.
a wonderful gesture for sure. It'll be, and it speaks to John Deere. That's kind of reflective of John Deere, hardworking, down to earth, let's get it done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Barry, I don't know if there are any people in the queue that are looking to ask questions.
I'm sure there are here. Hang on one sec, sorry. Chat, okay. Oh, here we go. All right.
I don't see anybody. Well, I'll continue as you look.
Well,
Just for everyone out there, we do have, celebrating the 50th anniversary, a book that's been completed. Craig DeVries, a very talented writer in town who covered the event for decades with the newspaper here, and moved on to a collegiate assignment over at one of the local colleges. Spent over 3 years talking to, I think, over 100 people. And it's really a tremendous story of 50 years in a market this size. Like you said, Dylan, most of the PGA Tour stops are in bigger markets now. Just people in town that refused to give up on the event when it came to times when it was at risk, companies stepping forward, individuals stepping forward. There's actually an image of the news release that was announcing the cancellation of the tournament in the mid 70s, and somebody said, no, we're not gonna do that. So we'll be able to have all of you in the media see it come tournament time. All of our volunteers are getting a copy. All the Pro-Am people are getting a copy. It's a great read.
all right, Claire, I think we have questions here. George McNeely, can you want to ask a question?
Yeah, one for Claire and one for Dylan, please. Claire, that was a very difficult decision that you and John Deere had to make last year, postponing a 50th anniversary for all the right reasons. You talk about the book, you talk about Dylan getting to defend his championship now. How does it feel to be somewhat back in business in this new normal?
Oh, it's fantastic. There's a real energy in town as we approach, this year's event. There was a real sadness last year not having the tournament, but as you mentioned, it was the right decision. It was for all the right reasons. John Deere especially has been vigilant about protecting its employees, making sure that everyone has a safe environment to work in. When it came to May of 2020 and we had to make a decision one way or the other, the only alternative was to have the event with no fans, and no one felt like that matched up what people here in town wanted to have happen, layered over the fact that you'd have a year ago some pretty serious health concerns that weren't totally mitigated yet. So it's the right thing to do in 2020. We missed it. As Lee mentioned, we still did $12.2 million with the other part of our business. We do a charity mission and an athletic event. So even without the athletic event, we had a pretty successful charity year. But this year it's great to be back.
Thank you.
Tom Johnston?
Hi, Dylan. Thanks for joining us this morning and happy birthday. Hey, question for you on defending and the timing. Does it seem, first of all, I'll go back to last year. You had COVID just a couple weeks later than where we are now. Would you have been able to have defended last year? And what has it been like having the defense spread out for 2 years? Has it, changed your mentality toward this event, made it any more exciting to come back to defend? What's that been like?
First part of the question, I would have logistically been able to play the tournament because the one that replaced last year's event was in Columbus, actually, where I am now. And yeah, I made it back on the Wednesday, so I wouldn't have been able to have done any media Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So along with what Claire said, I think it was the right decision from the sponsor side, from all things considered, being a 50th event. I mean, pushing it forward would have been the decision that I probably not willingly would have taken if I had all the facts in front of me, but I think it was the right decision considering everything. And then the timing of this year's event, I think, yeah, I haven't played so well the first part of this year. I've been up and down and a little lackluster on the greens, but this tournament yesterday, the US Open qualifier 36-hole tournament, was pretty key for me. I'm hoping to try and use some of that. Just, I don't know, that's experience, that feeling that I had yesterday. I felt like I was back to my normal golf and played some great golf. So I can have a week off now and prepare for the US Open. That's obviously a really tough challenge, but it's at a place that I've won Junior Worlds before, on Torrey Pines South Course, and my sports psychologist is in San Diego, and I've got a lot of fun memories of Torrey Pines. So I think it's a good lead up with that tournament, and then heading into the next couple events, and then heading on to Illinois for the John Deere Classic 4 weeks later should be a nice run up, and I should be in some good form. I'm hoping to play each of those weeks in between the US Open and John Deere. So I'm definitely going to be firing on all cylinders once the tournament comes around.
Matt Randazzo.
Dylan, thanks for doing this. We appreciate it. It's 50 years of golf here in the Quad Cities. And you just mentioned growing up and knowing this tournament and kind of seeing it and watching it, but not really knowing it, I don't think until maybe now. Where do you see it on the PGA Tour when it comes to what other golfers are talking about, how the tour, how the players see this event, and how it maybe has grown up? It's something we're pretty proud of, and how it has grown up, not just here in the Quad Cities, but on the tour as well.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for me to try and sum up. There are a few aspects to that question, but for me, the fact that I look back at my childhood and watching golf, that I know what the tournament is, that fact alone speaks to, it's either the community engagement, it's either the sort of novelness of the tournament that John Deere integrates so well in the tournament, that they have such a strong brand, and I remember that brand, or it's the fact that the tournament has been around for so long and the title sponsor has remained the same. So I think it's, if you add in all those pieces together, that's sort of the reason that it stood out in my head. But yeah, just thinking back as a kid, I didn't even know what a John Deere tractor was. In South Africa, I guess at the time in the early 90s or late 90s, we didn't have too many of those, but now I know exactly what it is, having watched that tournament through my teens and into my getting to the States, obviously, and hearing country songs and people mentioning stuff like that. So the brand itself is obviously huge in that sort of aspect for me. But then I think it's also what I experienced in the tournament when I was there was the fan engagement and the fact that the whole community comes together. I mean, I was surprised when Claire said that the PGA Tour has awarded you guys that last 5 years with the best community engagement. That's basically what I said in my post victory interview. I felt like this tournament has the most support. I mean, the fact that I stayed with the family in town, they was certainly welcoming, and they showed me around and they made me feel at home. And then on the golf course, all the volunteers, all the fans, it just felt like a sort of a home tournament, even though it's in the middle of Illinois, far away from where my home may be, South Africa or Texas. It just felt like a home event. And I think very few events have that feel. So from that point of view, yeah, I hope I answered your question. There was a second part to your question. Was there anything I missed there?
How do you see the other players on tour?
Oh, the other players.
Looking at the John Deere Classic, and I mean, is it even mentioned that it's a 50 years thing, or just I guess the perception of other players along with yourself as what the John Deere Classic is on tour?
Okay, I mean, I obviously can't speak for other people. You'd have to ask the other players on tour for their opinion, but the overarching theme I get, or maybe the thought I had before I came to the John Deere, because I have my own ideas now. So the words that I was getting from other guys was, it's almost like I would say like a second level major, because of the fact that you get into the Open Championship, because of the fact that it's been a title sponsor for so long, and then because of I know a lot of guys talked about bringing their families there. So basically their wives force them to go play that tournament because the kids have so much fun. They enjoy going there. So in that sense, it's got tons of appeal for the fans, the family, the other people, but then it's also for the players. It's like, hey, this is a notch above a normal tournament because you can get into the Open Championship. And when you look at the the list of winners, I mean, there've been some amazing players, guys that have gone on to win majors and done really well. So, or that have won majors and come back and played well and won. So yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. Sort of a second tier major, or a bridge to a major, or to a top level major, a WGC event.
George McNeely again.
Thanks. Dylan, we recently heard LeBron James, and I'm not asking you to comment on this, talked about how being in the NBA bubble, it was almost like PTSD. And when you hear comments like that and you compare it to what the last year has been like for PGA Tour players like yourself, you're a very empathetic guy, you're a very thoughtful guy. And I just wonder what the last year has been like beyond an inconvenience in terms of your playing career. When you enjoy doing something, you want to do more of it. You won this tournament. You were really looking forward to driving back to TPC Deere Run as the defending champion, and it didn't happen. But now you get to do it. Is it just a matter of joy postponed and let's get at it, or where's your mind right now?
I think the first part of your question, the initial startup once we came back from COVID, for me, it was a dream, because I'm not a super adventurous guy. I don't do the social stuff after tournament rounds. And so they told us no restaurants, no going out. And I was like, okay, everybody's going to have to play on my rules now, which is train, go to the course, do that, come home, just chill in the hotel room. So that was really helpful for me. And I mean, on a sort of personal, social side, I think we were extremely lucky. I was able to get to work back in June last year and play for millions of dollars and do my normal thing. I know a lot of tour pros were unhappy and they mentioned, oh, we had 3-4 months off. I couldn't earn a living, couldn't do all this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, hang on, guys, there are people that are losing their livelihood. They don't have jobs. They don't have backup. They don't have funds saved up. So the fact that I think some top level sportsmen and people can sit back and say, woe is me and my life is tough, I think they need to get a big dose of perspective and figure out what the rest of the world is going through. So beyond that, again, I've forgotten the second part of your question, George. Can you
returning to TPC Deere Run as defending champion finally for the 50th anniversary event?
It's definitely going to be weird.
That
It's going to be strange because I'm going on 2 years of memories. Obviously, only having played one event, one championship, I will have sort of recent memories, but not multiple memories piled up like other guys do, having played the tournament for 5 or 6 years. So I think I've asked another player before, he told the story of back in 06. And I said, how can you remember 06 specifically from that tournament? And he was like, oh, like it just stands out. And I was like, if I've played 10 or 15 tournaments over and over again, surely those stories and those memories are just going to blend together. So for me, yeah, it's going to be 2 years removed. And I think it's going to be almost extra nostalgic because those memories may be a little more faded and they may be just a little less clear. So I think I'm going to be excited. Excited to see the Solis family and see them again. Haven't seen them in 2 years. Yeah, it should be a great week. I know you said the big dig isn't going to happen, but I'm sure there'll still be enough engaging events and pro-am and stuff for me to visit and see all the people that made those memories so special.
Barry, can I ask a follow-up?
Okay.
Real quick, the golf course itself, what are your memories of what suits you for your game?
Can you guys tell me if it is a Pete Dye design? Is that true or false?
No, D.A. Weibring.
No, D.A. Weibring. Okay. So for some reason, TPC courses I really enjoy. A lot of them are designed by Pete Dye, and I thought for a moment that could be the reason, but I was going through the course in my head and I couldn't see any of his design features. But I just think the fact that it's sort of a birdie fest gets me out of my comfort zone. I'm typically a player that knuckles down and plays well in tough, windy, long, rough conditions. And when I got there, I looked and I said, okay, I'm just going to have to do something that I don't normally do, and that's make 25, 26 birdies in a week and just get over my mental approach of, oh, I only do well in tough conditions. So I think from that point of view, it gets me out of my comfort zone. And the specific design, I don't think there's anything there that favors anyone per se. If I think of the previous champions, I mean, Spieth is a wonderful putter. Steve Stricker is a wonderful putter. Dylan Frittelli is predominantly not a wonderful putter. So I think in that sense, it can also focus me and force me to putt well and double down on the fact that I am a good putter and I can do it and I can win this tournament again.
Thank
Dylan,
you.
I just wondered, since you won in 2019, are there elements of your game that you've worked on to improve? You've got the 2-year exemption, and it kind of gives you a little bit of a breathing room to kind of work on things. I just wonder if there's anything you have focused on.
Yeah, I'm definitely working on my putting right now. The last few months have been pretty terrible, just to be blunt, but I worked on it last year a lot, and my putting got really good for a spell there towards the end of last year. I just need to figure out how to get back to that. And once I do, I mean, my ball striking is top 30, top 40 on tour. I'm definitely not concerned about that end. But yeah, once the putting comes around, I'm going to be competing in tournaments for sure.
Are you working with any particular teacher on the putting, or just?
No, Chuck Cook is my coach. I trust him. I know most people tell me, oh, you need to see a specific putting coach, and that's what everyone's doing these days. But I'm going to stick to my guns and keep working with him. I may seek out some opinions from other players and possibly coaches and just maybe quiz them, see if there's anything glaringly obvious, but I know my technique is sound. I think it's more so effective getting the mind right, maybe my eyes as well, reading the greens and figuring out those two aspects more than changing everything and trying to figure out a new coach.
Michelle O'Neill, are you there? Maybe not. Maybe she can't talk. But so she wants to know, does the TPC Deere Run present enough of a challenge for you? How does a TPC Deere Run measure up to other PGA Tour golf courses?
Yeah, the challenge for me is obviously in the competitors, the guys that show up, and the other players who basically try and win. I think the course specifically, I drove it really well last year, so I didn't see much of the rough. I mean, I can picture just green, lush sections of grass on the right and left side of most of those holes. So I think I did well to avoid the rough last year, but if you don't hit it in the fairway around there, you're not going to be able to control the ball onto the greens, and it's going to be tough to make birdies. So in that sense, if you can hit it in the fairway, I think it makes the course extremely scoreable and you can make a lot of birdies. I don't know what your weather is going to be like the next month, but obviously if we get some dry conditions and the course can firm up, that'll make it a lot tougher. Once the greens get firmer, then we definitely find it harder to hit it close to those hole locations and make those birdie putts. But if you get your normal sort of thunder showers and rainy weather that I think you do in the Midwest, it's probably going to be a softer setup in a month's time.
All right, George, you are on again.
For Claire and Lee, if you don't mind, 12.2 million last year, 133 million to date. I'll start with Claire. You got these community engagement awards. There's probably nothing more engaging, with all respect to PR and social media, than contributing cash money to the community. How does that make your staff feel, just in terms of, you didn't even have an event last year and you opened up the John Deere coffers? That's huge.
How do we feel? We feel great about it. We really last year had the opportunity, I guess, not that we wanted it, without the athletic event, to remind people that we are a 501c3 with a mission to raise money for charity. This mechanism, the Birdies for Charity program, is something that we basically have perfected like no other on the PGA Tour. We have 465 different 501c3s that partnered with us last year. It's their main form of fundraising. Every charitable organization needs to generate funds. Our proposition is partner with us, and the pledges that come in that are designated for your organization, you're getting 100 cents on the dollar of every one of those, because John Deere paying all the administrative fees. Then we're going to put on our event and have other inputs into what we call a bonus fund, and give you a second check above that 100 cents on the dollar of at least 5%. And it is inarguably the most efficient and the most grassroots way for us to accomplish our charity mission. We don't just put on the event, pay our bills, and whatever's left at the end of the year is distributed to those people who asked for it, these organizations are really involved. So last year gave us a chance to tell and retell that story, and that's been going on since the 90s. So we're pretty proud of it, and 133 million is still kind of mind-boggling for us. So how does the staff feel? There's only 7 of us here in the office, so we feel pretty good about it.
Thanks. And Lee, you have the job of speaking for, how many, 1,500 volunteers, 1,000 volunteers. When you look into their eyes, have a conversation with them, it's that charitable component that's driving them. As great as it is to see Dylan Frittelli win a tournament or Jordan Spieth hit a drive, it really comes down to the impact you're having on the community that gets all of those people out there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it definitely is. And I mentioned I have the opportunity to go around and thank all of them for participating and being a part of it. And I can't tell you how many times I talk to people that, they get 2 weeks of vacation a year. And one of those weeks they donate to volunteering their time to marshal at the Classic. So it's really impressive, and the sense of pride that they take. If you compare us to the NFL, we're kind of the Green Bay Packers of PGA. A Green Bay fan, but we're the community that shouldn't, but we do, and it's just tremendous pride. It really is. It's really pretty amazing. One of the things Claire was mentioning, we do our fundraising activities. Every year we have the bonus fund that we provide that match, and it wasn't too many years ago that our number was right around 5 or 6 million. So 5 to 10% match means we've got to come up with 250 to 300, 600,000 tops. Well, when you do 12.2 million without a tournament, now you have to come up with 600 to 1.2 million and bonus fund to be able to provide that match and continue the momentum. And so from a board perspective and the rest of us, that's a big number. It's a daunting number, and I know it stresses our staff out a little bit, but we look forward to it every year, and so far we've been successful. Hopefully this year will be the same.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Tom Johnston.
Dylan, you mentioned that your life really hasn't changed a whole lot in the last year, with COVID situation. You stick to your routine. What's it been like for you to have the fans back on the course? And did you even like it? Maybe even like it better without the fans, or has that kind of re-energized the PGA Tour a little bit, and your perspective on that?
It's an interesting question. Initially, when it came out, I was like, oh, this is great not having fans, because my logistics side is just easier. I can come in the course, drive straight in the main gate. I don't have to wait for fans crossing and going on the bridges and with all the concessions. And so in that sense, when we started out, I was like, this is cool. Like, we can just play quickly and go home and not worry about things. But then after 3, 4, 5 months, it was just like, this is becoming monotonous and really boring. And there's not much to like amp yourself up. And a lot of players spoke about that too. Like, we're finding it tough to like amp ourselves up and play well. And then obviously when we had some fans come back, that for me was the reminder, like, hey, we're in the entertainment business. It was fun to focus on your game and try and play well with no fans there and no people around. But once they came back, it was like, this is why I do it. This is the fun part. It's like seeing people and giving kids high fives. And I sat on the balcony last week at Memorial, and I looked out and there were just people milling around everywhere, the 18th green, 10th tee putting green. And I just said to someone I was sitting with, I was like, this is awesome. Like, to see fans again and like get this vibe. I even missed the cut. I wasn't playing on the weekend, but I was having breakfast there on Saturday, and just the vibe that it creates around that. I think it was a good reminder that, hey, I think big reason why I do this is to be around people and to have that feeling. I think without that, I would probably go crazy having to play a golf tournament on a golf course with no people watching year in, year out. I think that would absolutely drive us crazy. And most guys wouldn't want to do it if they didn't have that sort of fan engagement. And my routines, yeah, they changed a little bit. Obviously, hotels, we couldn't go out for dinner and stuff, but now it's back to normal. We can go out, we can do things. And I've recently started dating a girl, so I have a reason to go out now. I have a little more impetus to get out in the evenings and have dinner and do some fun things. But yeah, it's great to have some people back. And I don't know what the tournament cap is for fans this year at John Deere, but I really hope we can get just as many people as 2 years ago when I won the tournament.
Go back to 2 years. What was the fan engagement like for you here? And did you notice it? And did you find yourself feeding off of it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, to be honest, I was actually scared to go out for like lunch or dinner in the town because I felt like I was probably going to get like hounded by local people, because it felt like everyone in that area and the like probably 20-30 mile radius was like tournament week. Like, this is huge. Like, I just thought that if I went out, like there's just going to be like mobbed by some kind of paparazzi or something. I know that's a little bit crazy to think of, but I just
Well,
stayed in
like
the
crazy
suburbs
breeds, it's okay, you're
all week, and I
safe.
was like, I'm not going to go. I've heard about this cool spot. Everyone's telling me go have lunch, dinner. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to stay at home. I don't want to, especially when I started doing well and figured people may recognize me. But hopefully this year I can get out and see more of the town and do some dinners and try and experience the community a bit more.
Matt Randazzo, one of the paparazzi.
Take it easy, Barry. That's not nice. Hey, Dylan. Usually when we talk to the defending champion, we talk about what it was like a year ago and what they remember, and it's amazing how their memory is spot on even a year ago. It's 2 years ago for you. Do you remember it crystal clear? Do you remember all the details of the back nine and coming in and winning? And along with that, what's your approach? I think you mentioned it a little bit, but what's your approach on repeating and defending? Is there a different mindset? All that kind of stuff. So do you remember it really well from 2 years ago? And then what's the approach coming into this?
I definitely do remember it. The back nine is going to be seared in my memory. Front nine, final round, I can probably piece together what I did, but that back nine, I can tell you every single shot and probably tell you a little story about each shot too. Yeah, and then the other things, I mean, I mentioned it earlier with it being 2 years. I think a lot of my memories will be a little dated or a little hazy, but once I get there, I'm sure they'll come flooding back, like thinking about things like, oh, where was my physio located? Okay, he was downstairs in the locker room. It was really like sort of cramped space, lots of guys around. It was a fun place to come in, and we're chatting and messing with other guys and just thinking about random things. How do I get to the driving range and little things like that? Like if you ask me right away, I'd have to think about it. But once I get back there, I'm sure all those memories will come flooding back to me. And then specifically on the performance side, trying to win and defend. I'm trying to think. I think I mentioned this last year, but I don't think I've ever defended a tournament win. So my 2 wins on the Challenge Tour, one I graduated to the European Tour, so I wasn't allowed to play the next year, and then the other one, I guess I did in Austria. I may have. That'd have been the only one. No, I didn't go back the next year. I didn't go back. Anyway, so this will be my first tournament, major tournament title defense. So I guess it's uncharted territory for me as well. But the game plan, as I said, would just be to try and make as many birdies as I can. It's always 18 to sort of 23, 4 under that wins that tournament. So you got to be ready to go deep into the 60s and make as many birdies as you can. So as long as my game is firing and my ball striking is good, I definitely back myself to do that.
Dylan, as you go into the U.S. Open, you said you won the Junior Worlds at Torrey Pines.
Yeah.
How long ago was that, and what do you remember, and what are you expecting there?
So that was 07. I went over and played in June. I sent emails out to a bunch of college coaches and got a few sort of lukewarm responses, even though I was the #1 amateur and #1 junior in South Africa at 17. And Coach Fields at Texas, he said, I'm really interested. He was probably the most interested out of any coach, and said, I got to see you play. So I had an exemption, having won the South African boys tournament, to go and play Junior Worlds, and flew over there. My mom and my dad came with and basically made a trip of it and managed to win. I knuckled down and did 3-4 days of good prep. Most guys kind of fly in the day before or maybe 2 days before, but I did some good preparation, obviously changing sort of 9 time zones from South Africa. The golf course has changed a little bit since then. We've got some new tee boxes, we've got some new green complexes and fairway bunkers, but I'm thinking back to the previous time they played there, and Phil Mickelson went out with a 3-wood and no driver, and that kind of boggles my mind, because I just see this course as an absolute brute off the tee. You got to be hitting the driver long and straight, and I definitely have that. I've pushed myself into sort of the top 10 driving distance on tour, and I think that'll help me big time. Thinking back to the Junior Worlds, when I was basically just hitting driver off every tee, we played it just as long as we played in the Farmers Championship, and maybe about as long as the US Open too. So for me as a 17-year-old to go and play there, I think that experience will be crucial. And just the good vibes of having win there will hopefully calm me down. And got my sports psych, Jay Brunzer, who lives in Mission Valley, not too far away. I think that'll be a huge asset and hopefully culminate in a good tournament performance on a big stage.
And Joey Don, you have a question?
Good morning. Yeah, this is just a quick question for Claire. Last time we spoke a couple months ago, the plan was to have roughly 5,000 to 10,000 patrons attend the JDC. Just wondering if that's still the plan, Claire. And then for those fans who are planning on attending, what they might need to be aware of and how they can expect things to look a little differently from years prior.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. We have, we're expecting, like anyone who's read the news stories, I guess, over the last couple of weeks, for Illinois on the 11th to announce that things are opening up. I think both the professional baseball teams are going to have, full capacity, certainly by the time the John Deere Classic comes around. The other protocols, however, that we're following are PGA Tour protocols, and they have presented the experience for a year now under a set of protocols that have been very successful. So our feeling is that we were planning for 10,000 a day, which we feel is about 1/3 capacity. All of our venues are going to be open air pavilions, which are all very comfortable and people will enjoy. 2 of them are going to be open to the public. 2 of them are going to be for an upgraded ticket price that includes food and beverage. All of these go on sale tomorrow. Our website, johndeereclassic.com, has all the information. We've had a pre-sale for people that, understanding that there might be a cap on the number, wanted to reserve a spot, and have had a lot of people. I think we had 1,700 people a day going to the website last week. So there's a lot of interest. Our feeling is that we might be able to do more than 10,000 a day with the state of Illinois restrictions being lifted, but the PGA Tour restrictions are really going to force us, I think, to not necessarily be totally the same as it was in 2019, but there'll be a lot of energy on the course. If you saw some of those Florida events, they were between 10 and 15,000 a day, and there was a lot of energy. So that's the latest. The things are changing all the time, and our website, johndeereclassic.com, is really going to be the best place to find all that. We've got a full Pro-Am, 208 amateurs on Wednesday, which is going to be exciting. We've got a Monday Pro-Am as well. So it's something to really look forward to for us. Thanks for asking the question.
Yeah, and we are going to have another Zoom, a little conference about the logistics of the tournament early, probably sometime next week. We'll let you know.
Right.
Anybody else have anything, TJ, for Dylan? Do you have anything else?
I do have one more for Dylan. Dylan, you were in Columbus last weekend, and kind of have a unique perspective on the John Rahm situation, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, first of all, and what's the mindset on tour right now with the pros? Are you still worried about COVID-19? Have you kind of lowered your guard a little bit in regards to it? What's the approach, how you deal with the health situations out there right now?
Yeah. Again, I can't speak for other players on tour. You'll have to quiz them and find their mindset. But for me, I'm not too worried. I've been vaccinated a month ago now, so I'm not worried about physically getting it. I know the first time I got it, I had mild symptoms, and it was 3 days in a hotel room and I was fine. So physically, I know I can combat it. So I'm not worried. As far as the CDC goes, I can't contract it now, at least within the first year of having this vaccine. So I'm not worried about passing it on to anyone. So for me, it's pretty much back to normal. I'm not too worried. Guys on tour, there are some guys that have reservations. They may not want to do it. I don't know what those reasons are, because from all my research and speaking to my physician, there's no risks involved, or hardly any risks involved. So yeah, I'm surprised that not more guys on tour have done it. But the John Rahm issue, I caught a bit of heat on social media for commenting on the Patrick Cantley sort of win poster the PGA Tour put out, and I just said, some people, I describe them as clowns, are talking about how John Rahm actually won this tournament, and it's simply not true. Patrick Cantlay is the winner of the tournament, end of story. I think it's quite silly for people to go out there and think that you can do something, whether it's play professional golf, play another sport, or work in business, and not follow the rules. We've signed up to play by the rules, be it the golf course rules. If John Rahm picked his ball up, walked over to the hole and dropped it next to it and tapped it in, I think a lot of people would be unhappy that he broke a rule. So the fact that the rules in place and the protocols are in place, Claire talked about it. The tour has done an amazing job over the last year and a bit. I mean, it's crazy how we got up and running so quickly. And obviously a few guys have tested positive, but no one, as far as I can tell, has ever passed on COVID within the tournament confines. So the fact that that was the case, the tour deserves some kind of medal to be able to do that. Now that they've pushed fans out, we've been able to get fans, and there've been no issues with that. I think it's absolutely amazing. So I think the John Rahm issue may also push a lot more guys to have the vaccine, because you have the vaccine, you're safe, you're protected, you won't be tested, and you then can't run afoul of that rule of testing positive and being automatically taken out of the tournament.
When did you guys get out of the bubble, or are you still in it?
We still have a tournament bubble when we're on site. Like, we're not supposed to obviously interact with fans. We're not supposed to. We're trying to mitigate as much mixing as possible. But if you have been vaccinated, there is a lot more leniency with that. So we're not tested anymore. And obviously you're free to do whatever you want to in your own time. We're still advised not to go out to restaurants, not to socialize in big groups. But as far as I can tell with the CDC guidelines, it's pretty safe to do so.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Ashley, how are we doing on time? All right. Any other questions, gang, or?
Hey, Barry, I'll throw one more out if you don't mind, for Dylan.
All right.
Timing's everything. You know, this is your era. Do you have a sense, as we begin celebration of the 50th anniversary John Deere Classic, that this event became a much bigger deal as the years progressed? I'm not really talking about the media or the fan turnout or the sponsorship, but just the idea that some of the names on the previous winners list won tournaments, were notables. It was a concurrent event. It was run up against majors when it was the Quad City Classic and things like that. And now it's really become something premier with a berth in the Open Championship. I know you touched on that a little bit before, but how does this just size up in your world? I know it's your biggest career win today, but I'm just curious how it sits with you.
For me personally, it's obviously going to hold a special place for a long time. It's not only for the win. I think it's definitely for that aspect of staying with a Solus family and feeling that engagement in the community. And yeah, I mean, as long as it fits in my schedule generally well, and there's not like a glaringly obvious, I need to rest before a long run up to playoffs or anything like that, I think I'll be playing this tournament every year just because of those fun memories and those feelings and just the sort of down to earth nature of the tournament. I think a lot of events we go to, there's high stress, there's high like energy, and it's a tough one to play, but it just feels easy to head out there and just sort of have a nice relaxing week and fun golf course. So it's also away from a big city. There's not much hustle and bustle, and that's kind of my view in things. I don't like going to these fancy cities and big lights and doing that whole scene. So I think for me, it's a big draw, and I think there are a few other players that appreciate that too.
I think Claire is installing some bright lights, but that's for another time. Thank you.
All right. Now we have a question from Rory Spears.
Yeah, Dylan, can you tell me how would you handle having a 6-shot lead at the end of a third round of a PGA Tour event and then suddenly being told, like John was, that in essence you're out of the tournament? How would you handle that? And also, have you talked to John? Do you know if he's okay?
I haven't chatted to John. No, I don't know anything about that, but it would be tough. Obviously, he had some heads up. He knew what was going on. He knew he was being tested. So it is shocking and it is surprising and it does suck. I agree. But PGA Tour protocols are in place for a certain reason. And unless we revisit those and we want to okay guys with COVID to play in their own group and to play separately and be totally separated from the field, the rule is a rule. And unfortunately, once you sign up on tour, We sign up to a code of conduct. We sign up to operate under the rules of the PGA Tour, and sadly for him, it went the other way. And I know it's a huge, I mean, that's $2-3 million plus that he probably missed out on, and let alone the world ranking points from winning something like that. But I think it's a lesson. I mean, I hope other guys on tour see it as a lesson. It's something that you should learn from. Hey, housekeeping, logistics, let's take care of that stuff too. You can't just go out there and think, oh, I'm a golfer, I'm just going to play golf 24/7. You got to have the other things in line too. If he had had the vaccine, it never would have been an issue because he wouldn't have been tested and he wouldn't have been subject to any of those issues. So I think guys will hopefully take heed of that and take care of stuff. And it's a good thing, you're protecting other people by getting that vaccine. So hopefully that's a message to the other guys on tour and people at large.
Also, can you talk about your plan and how you get ready for the Open Championship by playing at John Deere the week before? There was some players who always thought for years, maybe until Zach Johnson blew up the theory, that you couldn't properly prepare playing at John Deere and sort of getting over to the Open Championship maybe early in that week of the tournament. How do you prepare? You played really well in 2019 after winning at John Deere. What's your approach to that?
Yeah, I played great having won that exemption going over there. I think it can go both ways. If you play poorly and then you miss the cut and you're sitting around on a Saturday waiting for the flight on Sunday, that's maybe not the most ideal thing. But if you're playing well, tournament golf is tournament golf. It gets you ready under any situations. I went from hitting high, long tee shots and spinny wedges to playing Royal Portrush, which is low running shots and lots of bump and runs. And I managed to adjust right away. But I think that was because my mindset was such that I've performed under pressure and I've done really well recently. And those good juices just flowed over to the next week. And I was ready to get into contention and play well.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks.
I think, hey, Barry, you asked Ashley about the time. I think Dylan's been unbelievably generous with an hour's worth of time. And it doesn't look like anyone else is in the queue. A few comments about the quality of the virtual event. That's Ashley Hansen in our office. She did a terrific job of making sure that this thing works. And it worked. We also found out, Dylan, that your middle name is Ashley. So you and I need to talk about that sometime. Few other final comments. If you would have been here in 2006, you'd have remembered it because it was pretty dang hot. Pete Dye did design the course that the tournament was played on for 25 years, Oakwood Country Club, but you wouldn't recognize it as a Pete Dye course probably. There isn't a railroad tie anywhere. And we did learn, I guess, you're a geography major, so growing up in South Africa, you must not have geographically been close to Louis Oosthuizen's property because he's got a lot of John Deere equipment.
I've heard he's bought a few.
You must never have driven by the...
And he's probably going to buy some more. He's moving to a bigger property in Florida. I'm sure he's going to give you guys a call.
There you go. And for Rory Spears, Francesco Molinari also played here and went to win the British Open, or the Open. Thank you so much, Dylan. So generous with your time. We really look forward to seeing you in about a month. So good luck at the US.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for putting this together.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks, Dylan.
Bye-bye.